I don't know about you guys, but the quarantine was not ideal for my eating and my physique when we first got locked down. I took it as a way to pity myself, feel bad. Obviously the whole world is going through this, but I took it as, hey, no, it's only me. We're all gonna die, so I might as well eat cookies, Chipotle, and pizza. And then you realize, okay, we're gonna make it through this. It's gonna take some time, but we're gonna make it through. Let me not eat like an asshole forever. And luckily, I'm married to someone who constantly reminds me that I'm eating like an asshole, won't have sex with me if I don't look my very best. That's something I need a therapist about, but also runs a pretty phenomenal nutrition company with Own Your Eating. And she's put together, that is Roz, my wife, some great challenges that you guys can check out. If you're like me, like you said, and you need a little extra accountability, you need a kick in the ass, you want to just learn a little more, you want to do something really cool at your box, at your gym, at your affiliate, you should check these out. So if you go over to SugarWOD in the marketplace, we've got the Own Your Eating store in there, and there's 3 different challenges you can check out. If you're a box owner, I highly recommend you check out the Gym Nutrition Challenge. I think it's only like $169, something like that. And the cool thing about it is, if you're a box owner, you can give this to your members as a way to just, hey, I'm giving you a bonus. I'm giving you something. We appreciate that you stuck with us during the quarantine. We appreciate that you kept your membership active, or you can even make money. She's had a few gyms that have done really well at $169. You get 20 people signed up at $20, you've made over $200. So check out the 30-day transformation challenge for gyms. That's a specific one for box owners. And then we've got ones for individuals, the 30-day transformation challenge, as well as the 30-day get lean challenge. And with both of those, you're going to get programming, you're going to get daily information, daily accountability, and so much more. The transformation challenge is really for those that are either new to tracking macros and flexible eating, or maybe you've done it in the past and you want to get dialed back in like I needed. And of course, accountability goes a long way. It's something I preach as far as a coach. I have coaches for many aspects of my life, and the primary reason is I just need that accountability. Hey, did you do what I told you to do? Hey, don't forget you said you do this, right? It's just a reminder in the back of my head when I'm about to mess up that I got someone out there that's relying on me doing well and going to remind me about it. And then there's the 30-day get lean. This is more for the experienced people. Maybe you've tracked macros in the past, you have a good understanding of nutrition, but you're ready to take it to the next level. Maybe you've plateaued, you're ready for reverse dieting, or you just need some extra coaching out there. So you can check these all out on SugarWOD. The link is in the show notes. But if you go to SugarWOD, you go to the marketplace, you look up Own Your Eating, you're going to see these options. And the cool thing is, you can use the code Best Hour. You can use the code Best Hour, and you'll get 10% off any of the options there. So BESTHOUR. The code Best Hour will get you 10% off in the SugarWOD marketplace. Check it out. Own Your Eating. Roz's 3 challenges, and she's seen tremendous results. And trust me, if you're working with Roz, I'm going to hear about it. She'll ask me for some feedback as well. So you really get 2 coaches for the price of one. Check it out. Use the code Best Hour for 10% off. Ready?
Oh, all right. What happened to the countdown?
I don't know. I just hit record.
Yeah, you just gunned it. All right, Jay. We're talking chapter 15 today. Be patiently impatient. And I know you know a lot about being patiently impatient in writing a book, because that's one thing that you have to do when you're writing a book. You have to be patiently impatient.
We really do.
Now, you talking at the beginning of this chapter about when you opened your gym, Albany CrossFit 2007, you knew about coaching, but you had to learn a lot of other skills. And we've talked about this in other chapter talks about how you had to learn how to make a website and manage a website, take photos, upload them, create videos on YouTube, and all these other things. But one thing that you never really gained a skill on was craftsmanship and being able to build things within your gym. And so you had to hire a handyman. So let's talk about some of these projects in the early days. What was the first handyman project?
Well, the very first project was putting up the pull-up bars.
Okay.
And I didn't necessarily, well, I kind of hired Chad. So I talk about in the book a little bit. Chad introduced me to CrossFit, my buddy from Jiu Jitsu. We've spoken about it. His wife, Angie, became a longtime member of the gym as well. And he was very handy. And he helped me kind of basically build the first rig. It was just piping that we used in phalanges and put it into the wall and, then down to the floor. And it was very unstable. So what we didn't realize at first was we thought they were just concrete walls, but we realized they were cinder block. So if you can imagine a cinder block, it's hollow in the middle, or it's, empty in the middle.
Yeah.
So we would be drilling into what we thought was concrete, but then you would get beyond it
You'd
and
punch through.
you'd punch through and it just wouldn't stick. So we did that for everything to begin with. And the pull-up bars, I remember there were times where I was literally holding the pull-up bar and pushing it into the wall, like if someone was on it, like worried that it was going to fly out of the wall with them kipping. And this is before kipping was, people were kipping, but before the butterfly kip, and people were doing these ginormous kips. So the pull-up bars did not last, and we had to really reinvent how we put things in. But that was the first project, and then other little things like building shelving units and that kind of stuff. But the big first project was what we talked about earlier, that muscle up contraption that we had built.
And this is in the days before Rogue Fitness, again, Faster, and other equipment companies, right?
Yeah, Rogue was just starting. I've told the story about how I was Rogue's like second or third customer ever when I bought those rings that didn't work for me on the muscle ups. So that was
Oh,
me.
yeah.
I was the Rogue's first customer. Bill Henniger came up to me at the CrossFit Games and asked me about if I was Body by Jay back in the day, and I said yeah, and he was like, "You're our first customer." So I bought those rings, and then slowly they started to grow. But it was years before they were building enough equipment and building rigs. After that pull-up contraption, the next thing we did, I don't even remember where we bought them. I'd have to think about it. Was basically these. You remember the what would you call them, James? They were like
The wall
units.
holders?
No. Remember before that, they were brackets. That's what they were, brackets, and then the piping ran through the middle of the bracket.
Oh, for the pull-up bar.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even know what those are called.
So they're basically, if you're listening, like brackets, and you had to space them like every 4 to 5 feet, for pull-up space. You can go a little further and have two people on a space, but that wasn't really recommended. And then you would run the piping through it. And oh man, remember we had to get piping cut. Then we had the same issue with screwing it into the wall. But yeah, I'm sure some old videos can show those. The benefit of those were no floor space used.
Yeah, isn't it funny how back in the day we were doing pull-ups on literally like, just like metal piping that could be in your wall. And now today we have all these fancy pull-up bars and everyone's very particular on what they can do their pull-ups on, and you have to have the
Which
grip and all
kind?
that stuff. Yeah. I can only do pull-ups on a Spiel bar. I can't go on the regular bar. But back in the day this is PVC pipe. This is metal PVC or metal just plumbing piping.
Yeah, and I remember there were certain areas, not done purposely, but that we like got the thickest PVC that would fit through the hole, and like literally had to hammer it through. And then other areas where it was a little thinner, and people would then fight over, which one they got, the thicker or the thinner one. But man, and then so you'd have to imagine it again. I'll post a video, but the piping ran through, and then there was a screw in each bracket. And you would tighten that screw up, but those would sometimes come loose, and I know on more than one occasion, the screws came loose, and while people were going, the bar actually turned. And I'm pretty sure people fell off the pull-up bars.
Yep, more than likely. But thus is the early days of CrossFit equipment and figuring things out. I remember those prowlers, the original prowlers. That I think there was a guy in town. It was a welder, right?
Yeah, so that was Bo. He was a member of the gym, and he was a welder, and he just kind of saw online that people were using prowlers. He's like, I could probably build one of those, and he built us one. And then I think he built maybe a second. And then we had a competition. I was like, hey, can you build 8 of these? And then he built them, and then we had them at the gym and we used them all the time. And much like the pull-up bars, like those prowlers were not built completely evenly.
No.
So whether the foot pegs were perfect or the weight was, so then when we threw them in a competition, we actually used those prowlers in a regional competition that qualified people to the CrossFit Games. And to this day, almost 10 years later, I get, hate mail, not real hate mail, but, buddies that are like, I would have made it to the CrossFit Game if not for those damn prowlers.
Some of those prowlers still exist. I know we sold one to Dyke, or maybe two of them. So last time I was at his gym, I saw one of those old prowlers, and I can't remember who else bought some of the other ones.
It's funny, they were solid. They were built to last.
Yeah, when the apocalypse happened, there'll be roaches, Twinkies, and those prowlers will be left after.
And for reference, and I'll put a video of those prowlers as well. But you buy a great prowler from Rogue, and I recommend it. They have some good stuff. You have to load it up to make it heavy. These prowlers alone
started heavy.
I mean, I think the workout that we used to do was the empty prowler lap around the parking lot. And so we used to refer to it as an island. There's basically the Albany CrossFit parking lot. There's an island of grass in the middle that kind of split the parking lot into two halves. And around it was we used to say it was 200 meters. I don't know if we truly ever measured it.
If you stay perfectly centered in the lane, that'll be as close as you're going to get.
So, but the challenge was always who can go the fastest empty prowler, and it would just destroy people. People.
You'd get that prowler flu.
Oh man, I remember some great videos of Kevin and Gene doing it. But I'll definitely include some videos of those prowlers in the notes section of today's episode.
And the fun part about it is that they were all multicolored too. We had some green ones, some red ones, some blue ones, some orange ones, and people had their favorites. You can only push the blue one. You can't push the green one.
Again, because you would think that there was a difference. Yeah. I mean, and there was, but you would like really cling on to a certain one.
Yeah. So being patiently impatient. A lot goes into being patient when you're waiting for this stuff to be made, because you say, hey, Bo, I want prowlers, but you want them tomorrow. It's not like you're ordering them off of a website. They're already built. You just have to wait for them to be shipped to you. You have to actually wait for him to design it and put it together and then bring it to you. Same thing with building the desk. You talk about how you hired a handyman to build a desk for the gym in the hallway there. And that took a little bit longer than other projects. And you started to become a little impatient with the handyman. You think that's just from lacking the perspective and understanding of what goes into making something like that?
Well, that's a good question, actually, because one of my biggest, I wouldn't call it a regret, but not if I could, because I suppose I could, but I'd like to be more handy, right? I've owned homes and I'm not very handy. I'm at the point where I can change a light bulb, find a blown fuse, that type of thing, but not really build anything. And I think it's a great skill to have. So certainly part of it is probably not understanding. What I can equate that to these days for people listening is video editing. So as I've owned multiple businesses, and even for the gym, if you look at some of those old videos, I edited them. And now you see some of this great video editing. But the issue is people think, the shooting of the footage is the hard part. When in reality, it's no, the camera guy has to go home and watch hours of footage, figure out what they like, clean it up. And I think we don't understand how challenging that is. And I've kind of learned that over the years.
And you have to, once you edit it or you go to save it or export it, you have to wait for this giant file to load. Then you have to actually upload it to YouTube. So you're like loading this giant video like twice. And sometimes it takes like 30 minutes.
Oh, if not longer. I mean, the episodes we have of dropping in when we were on the box tour, our video guy will be like, all right, I'm going to export. I'm like, cool, hit me up when it's ready in a couple minutes. And he's like, no, this is going to take hours. Because the higher that resolution, the longer it takes. And so point is, I think a lot of times, like the question you asked, when you don't have a good understanding of it, you don't realize just how hard it was. Now, in addition to that, I will tell you a lot of these early days, people were just helping out. So while we may have paid for, the the equipment and what Bo needed to build the prowlers, or for Chad to, we might have bought the PVC. A lot of the times it was just people volunteering. Like, people just, when you find something you're passionate about in this way to, spend your time in something unique, and you haven't really had an opportunity to be a part of in a long time, people just want to be a part of it, and they're willing to volunteer their time for it. And so they're doing something out of the kindness of their heart. And here I am, meanwhile, being mad that it's not getting done fast enough.
Now, when you have these volunteers come in to help you out with the project, like, do you recommend box owners, like, like buy everybody coffee, take everyone out for lunch? Like, how do you take care of volunteers to make sure that they're happy, they don't feel like they're getting taken advantage of, and they keep coming back?
Well, this day and age, I'm a big proponent of make sure you're just paying people. Make sure they're getting paid. And if it's either, sometimes you have people that just don't want to get paid, they just really want to be a part of it. Like, for example, what, I think I've told this story before, but one of the last times we painted when we expanded to that fifth room, and we actually painted the upstairs hallway as well as the rooms, and people were just showing up all throughout the day. There was just like a supply of pizza, or we would do beer, or we do a party. But yeah, you got to make sure it's at least fun for those people.
Yeah, you gotta keep them motivated, let them know that they're appreciated and a part of the gym, not just someone who's helping out and no one notices. Maybe even a shout out on the newsletter or in class.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Maybe a shout out, on your Instagram, thanks to Teresa for coming in and painting, or, thanks to John for, building this for us, like making sure that they're getting, you know, the credit and adulation that they deserve.
Yeah. Now, if not for every project our volunteers can work, you're gonna have to possibly outsource to an actual handy person who can, do the knocking down of a wall or putting in a floor the right way. So how do you go into hiring the right person? There's a lot of people out there, and everyone's got a guy, but sometimes the guy doesn't always work out. How do you find the right guy or lady that can do this work for you? And what kind of things are you looking for in a contract with that person?
Well, at the beginning, it was really just my friends, and then it became. I remember the welder, for example. I think I just looked up on Craigslist. Like, it was when Craigslist first came out, and I found somebody willing to build there. 2007, and then after that, it truly just became word of mouth and in house. One thing, and I've said this numerous times in these interviews, I've always tried to keep the jobs I can manage inside the gym as best I can. So be it obviously the coaching staff, but even, the chiropractors and massage therapists we would recommend I would always try to support our community. And, when you have a community as big as 500, chances are you're going to have a carpenter in there. You're going to have a plumber in there. Now, make sure, here's the one thing I would say, if you're listening, you're like, oh, that's a great idea. It may end some relationships. So, like you asked, what would you put in the contract? Well, I would have one. Chances are back then I didn't really have contracts. It was like handshakes, and that's
Yeah.
not ideal.
Yeah, with a handshake, it's you're friends, but you want them also to take you seriously and to take the job seriously, and you don't want things to get delayed, or if something breaks after the fact, who's responsible for that, So it's always good to have things be official, and that's just to protect you and them.
Yeah, once the gym got big enough, we started to do contracts and then really taking things seriously, because at that point it's like, hey, we need this done. But back in the day, like you said, it was like, sure, we want 8 prowlers, get them to us when you're ready. Versus, we're knocking down a wall, we can't be closed for a month.
Yeah. And I mean, let's talk about that. That was the giant expansion. Started off in one racquetball court, took over another one, went next door, knocked down a wall. Now, I'm assuming in the text here, when you're talking about knocking down the wall, you're talking about the double, right? The first wall to go down.
Correct. So the very first wall we knocked down was, if you look at the old videos, there was a room that was like, what color was that? I think it was blue. Did we paint the wall blue in the first room? And then the second room was also blue. And um, we always used to joke that, Kevin and I remember the color of that blue. It was actually called nostalgia. And then the yellow was called Sunshine. When you're picking out colors at like Home Depot, there's very
Yeah.
unique names. So yeah, we knocked down that wall, and we found someone again through word of mouth on that, and just started knocking down the wall. Didn't get anything approved through the town, which I would highly recommend you do that kind of stuff as well. And and that was the first real deal of construction that went down.
So let's talk about that. Like, how did this all go down first? Uh, what did you say to Shy? Like, hey, I want to knock down this wall, and this room can never again be reconverted to a racquetball court. Like, what was his response? What did you say? How'd you pull that one off?
So that was actually the first time that we had a contract in place for the rent.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to that, we just kind of had a handshake. It was always just, you're paying on a monthly, and here's the rate. When you have one room, when you have two rooms, it went up. When you had a third room, it went up again. But now that you're knocking down a wall, I remember we had to actually have a sit down with Shai and his brother Amir and say, okay, now we need a contract, and we need to figure out, because if you leave at this point, we've got this room that's no longer usable.
Yeah, you're taking away two courts, and that's going to be something difficult for them to come back from.
Yeah, and in that contract, it was, if we stayed long enough, that it was just covered. If we left at a certain point in time, we had to pay to build the wall back up. So there was, a whole bunch of stuff like that in the contract itself.
Okay, and that makes perfect sense. That's probably a more agreeable arrangement between you and Shai and Amir versus going to the town of Colony to get anything done, because they're very difficult. Can you explain those early growing pains with them?
So whenever you're doing construction, even at your house, I guess by law and technically, you're supposed to go to the town and file for papers, get approval to do it. Putting up a fence. Hey, you have to probably get the color of the fence and the width and all the height and all that stuff, and bring it to the town, propose it, and then they approve it. I didn't know any of that. Now, even more important at a business, even more important when the wall you're deciding to knock down is a structural wall.
Yeah, it's holding up part of the building.
So, so we get this guy to knock the wall down, and I believe he was just a member of the court club. He was actually. He was a member of the court club. He's the same guy that wound up paving the outside, and he had done some work around the gym. So we're doing this work, and I don't think we've ever discussed this. The court club members hate the CrossFit members.
Yeah.
I don't know if that still goes on.
It's the war has died down, but there's still some evil eyes in the hallway.
And we can have an entire chat about that. But basically, these old men and some women play racquetball. There was at the height of the court club, there was 18 courts. At some point, they converted 6 of those courts to squash courts. So now we have 12 racquetball/handball courts, because you play this 2 sports on the same court, and 6 squash courts. The squash courts slowly got changed. One became a spin room, one became a cardio room, one became a rock climbing room. The racquetball court still existed. And then when I started doing CrossFit there, they went from 12 to 11 to 10 to 9 to eventually there's only 7 now. But so they didn't like us because we were encroaching on their territory. Meanwhile, they were never full. They were always empty. I mean, it's a dying sport, racquetball and handball. And let me tell you, they're both phenomenal sports. Handball is an amazing sport. I highly recommend people checking it out. Not many sports that you have to learn to use both sides of your body like that. Super, talk about balance, accuracy, agility and coordination. Handball has it all. But anyway, between us taking the courts, loud music, more people in the hallways, they just didn't like us. So long way to get to the point. When we started knocking down the wall, there was a rat. I don't know who it was, but they went to the town and they let them know that we were doing construction.
Really? Someone there's a whistleblower.
There was a whistleblower. Now, luckily for me, another member of the court club who was very high up at the town in that area, like development or whatever the title he had was, was one of the few people that I had a very good relationship with. I mean, I'd been in the core club since 2000. I knew a lot of these people. Some of them I was still very close with, and a handful of the miserable, you know, Fs, if you will, just no matter what, didn't like me. And not so much they didn't like me, they didn't like the core club. I mean, the CrossFit members. Meanwhile, as you know, James, CrossFit is what was keeping the core club alive. You know,
Yeah,
like,
it's bringing in fresh faces, new people. And over the years, a lot of people have tried racquetball and handball from the CrossFit side of things.
yeah, you know, it's like, I you know, there's probably some cliche expression. It's like they're biting the hand that feeds them, if you will. It's like, I get that you don't like us, but we're the reason you're able to still play this sport because we're the one paying the bills here. You know, my rent at the time was substantial, and it was more than you know. So when I would argue with Shy, I'd be like, Shy, you're listening to one member complain who pays you, you know, $50 a month. Meanwhile, I'm paying you thousands of dollars a month in rent. You got to take my side. So anyway, this guy helps us out, and he's like, look, all you need to do is file an application. As long as you file that application, they're fine. So going forward, I learned that, hey, just file the application. They want their, you know, $250 application fee or whatever it costs, and I was good to go. I'm not
So,
going to give that guy's name out, but I was very grateful for him.
so that's probably a good piece of advice for any gym owners listening who are thinking about expanding or adding some construction project to their gym, whether it be a new bathroom or office, is just file the paperwork and do it in advance, probably.
Do it in advance, follow the paperwork. Obviously, if you can, you know, follow up on it, that would be ideal. I don't think the way I did it was perfect, but it at least got the job done. What you don't want is, you know, for the town to come over and be like, hey, you can't knock that wall down. We're putting a halt on it. And now your gym is closed for an extended period of time, or worse yet, you know, them coming over and saying, hey, you didn't ask for approval of that. You got to go back and fix it. And neither of those scenarios happened, and I don't think they would, but ideally you'd prevent that.
Yeah, that way, you don't have to wait too much longer for this project that you want to be done yesterday. And when you're thinking about expanding your gym, let's talk more for advice on to the box owner here. One, how do you budget in the long term to eventually be able to expand? And also, how do you know when it's time?
That's, you know, the budget. It's kind of like, hey, you got to have money in the bank, and you got to know how much it's going to cost, etc. You know, be smart about it. But more so, along with that budget, the follow up that you asked about time, that's really more important than people think. And I'll go back, and I mean, we were in a unique scenario because of the layout of the court club. So basically, you have to imagine, you know, we went from one court to five, but it wasn't like we had this huge, you know, a racquetball court is 20 feet wide by 40 feet long by, I believe, another 40 feet high. So, you know, there's this big open box, but it wasn't like we have five in a row where it's just massive. We had three, but there's a hallway separating the other two. So the expansion kind of happened, but it wasn't necessarily ideal, because this is what I would tell people: you have to really evaluate why you're expanding. So consider this: we have 200 members, and we're like, wow, these classes are crowded. However, remember, a lot of the reason it was crowded was because these people were doing their own programming back in the day. So it's like these turds, if you will, let's call them turds just to have a reference, right? Are taking up space. So meanwhile, I'm like, oh shit, we need to expand. But now I'm expanding because of these people that weren't really abiding by the rules in the community of Albany CrossFit. Am I explaining
Yeah,
that well, James?
yeah, it'd be
Versus,
more economical to get them either on the same program and coming to classes, or just kick them out of the gym, and now you don't
yeah,
have to expand.
that that's my point. There's a point in time where it's actually, and we talked about this with raising rates, but where it's actually better for you to lose those people. So say it's 10 people, and they're paying you, let's just use even numbers. They're paying you $100 a month. That's $1,000 a month. Well, to expand, it's going to cost me $10,000, and then my rent goes up $2,000. So to accommodate those 10 turds, it's actually costing me 10,000 plus an additional 2,000 a month. I'm actually losing money by keeping you guys.
Yeah, and I mean, I can see how it's hard for many gym owners because even though those members might be quote unquote some of your worst members, they're not involved in the community, they don't come to events, they're trying to do their own thing. Maybe they even talk, behind other people's backs in the hallway, all kinds of stuff. People still are friends with them. So how do you deal with that aspect of it on, okay, you're willing to lose those 10 people or those 5 people, however many it is, but then other people who aren't involved in the situation might be unhappy because they're not there anymore.
Yeah, I mean, now we're diving deep into the weeds on that. I mean, I think ultimately, if I can go back and do anything different at Albany CrossFit, it would be try to prevent those cliques from forming, the people that would follow different and I've talked about it. I was guilty of it myself. So I don't blame anybody, but I definitely look back and realize, hey, had that not happened, I might not have expanded. It would have, and again, the layout of the gym plays a big role. We had a very unique layout there, but maybe it's whether or not you move to a bigger space. Maybe it's if I can keep everybody coming to class and not need that auxiliary space in the corner, I can make classes bigger and I can actually save myself money, keep everybody here.
Yeah, and I mean, you and I have talked about this before too. This is not something that we did in the past, but it almost seems like open gym should be a more expensive membership. Like even though you're not getting coaching, but you're coming in as many times as you want, you're using all the equipment, you're doing your own programming, you're potentially taking away from community. Do you think that should be a premium membership? Like you're going to pay more than the other people.
If not more, definitely the same. I know a lot of people kind of drop the price on that open gym, but it's
Yeah.
floor space. The most valuable thing you have at your box, other than your coaching staff, is that floor space. You know, Barbells are cheap at the end of the day. Dumbbells, bumper plates, another spot on the rig. Equipment is cheap at the end of the day. It's do you have the space on the floor to use that equipment? Because if you can only accommodate 12 people and someone's doing open gym in the corner, now you can only accommodate 10 and they're going to be upset. And not to mention, and I don't want to go much further down this rabbit hole, but the people that want to do that are typically the worst members at your gym.
Yeah.
And when I say
I don't.
worst,
Yeah, they're not bad people. They're just not on board with everybody else. Like everyone else is on the same track, same mindset. We're coming to class. We're trying to be better a little bit every day. We have a coaching staff to here to support you. This is what we're working on today. This is all you need for today to get better. And meanwhile, the other people are like, yeah, but I want to sit around and do 5 workouts and do them all kind of half-assed. And then I'm going to blame you for not making any progress.
exactly. Yeah. Those listening know who we're talking about.
So back to expanding. So you have to calculate the budget on like why is the reason behind the expansion? Is it warranted in the first place? And you figure out, okay, you're not having the open gym problem. You are having an influx of members come into the gym, and you do need to expand. What's the first step?
Just finding out if it's possible. We had concrete walls like we talked about, then going, and finding out not only is it possible, but is it going to be allowed in our lease, and what are the ramifications of that? Like I said, we went from a handshake deal to now we have a signed lease and certain amount of time. And
Should you sit down with a lawyer, just someone to put a different perspective on it and think about the long term?
if you can afford a lawyer, it's never a bad idea to sit down with that lawyer. If you're ever thinking to yourself, should I be talking to an attorney? Yes, you should,
Yes.
right? So yeah, I probably should have. I'm still very much this way to a fault where I'm just like, you want to do it? I'll do it. Let's handshake and go. And I've talked about that's a bad thing, and we'll talk about it in future episodes, where it really bit me in the ass. But I've learned, hey, at least get stuff written down in black and white, even if it's just the two people involved writing a contract. But yeah, if you can get an attorney involved, and I heard an attorney recently tell me this, and he said it well. Like, if you're making a contract, the goal is that you put it in your desk, you never look at it again. But should you need it, it's there.
It's that safety net that you're building. It's a nice
Exactly.
backup. So you've made these expansions, you've knocked down one wall, we have a double now. Let's flash forward a couple years later, you're knocking down was it? It was one more wall to make a triple, right? Or was it two walls?
I believe we went from the double, we made another double across the hallway, and then eventually we did the triple.
The triple, yeah, the triple was late 2000, winter 2011, 2012, right there, right before the Tri-State Throwdown. Remember
Yeah,
that?
yeah, that was the one we talked about recently with Tominski, where he did the Continental Clean.
Yep, that was it.
So, and we'll keep in mind when we say double or triple, what we're referring to is the number of racquetball courts in that room. So the double was two racquetball courts next to each other, and the triple was three.
Yeah. What was
Am I
the
right about that order? Did we go double on the left side and then
I,
triple on the
I
right?
want to say, thinking back on it, I want to say there was single, so two single courts on the left hand side of the hall. On the right hand side of the hall, there was the double, and then I almost want to say it went straight into a triple because I finished my internship in August of 2011, and when I came back for fall face off that October, it was still a double and two singles. Then when I came back for the Tri-State Throwdown in February, it was a triple.
All right, I believe you. I believe you.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we had the double was the original room in the second room, two singles on the left hand side there, or whichever, depending on what side you're looking at, and
Yeah,
then the double became a triple.
definitely. What
Yeah.
was the difference in the two projects making the first double versus making the triple? It seems like the triple went a lot smoother. You'd learned some lessons. You had a different contractor, probably had actual contracts with that person installed because there was an issue with the double where you had to fire the person that was doing that, right?
Well, yeah. So, one thing I've learned about contractors is they're very keen on starting a project, collecting their money, but then starting the next project. So there was so many days where it's like, oh, I'll be there. They weren't there. And meanwhile, at this point, the gym is basically closed. There's dust everywhere. When you're knocking down a concrete wall, it's dirty. There's dust everywhere. So we were trying to, the goal was to get it done within a week. So we're trying to run workouts outside. We're trying to accommodate everybody, and then especially as we went to the bigger expansion, it's like we have more and more people. I can't get these people upset. My mentality also was other boxes were opening. And my thought was, well, if they're not going to come here, they're going to go somewhere else. So it was really just important to make sure that we had a contract in place, that we knew the expectations. And then we also, hired a real deal contractor versus some guy that kind of does it on the side.
Yeah, and that make getting the triple done it's a massive project. And if you think about it, fall face off was probably actually I think it was on Halloween because I remember being there for the Halloween party right after it. So it was right around end of the month October, and then maybe you guys started the triple project November at some point, or maybe even December, and it was done by early February. And so that's
Yeah.
two walls knocked down, all the equipment pulled out, mats, moving mats out of a room, those horse stall mats is the most pain in the ass job ever.
Yeah,
And getting it
box
all
owners.
painted and ready for a major competition as well.
And one other thing you're forgetting, we reinforce the floors.
Yeah, that too.
So people don't, we didn't realize, nor did the owner of the building realize, the wood floors were basically fake floors. And then underneath the wood, it was like a 1 foot drop to concrete. So we were destroying the floors with bumper plates, over the years. And then we realized, all right, we need to reinforce these because there were literally spots in the room where they were like booby traps.
Yeah,
Like
you'd
if
roll
you,
your ankle or sink down a couple inches.
yeah, because the floor was broken underneath, a 1 inch horse stall mat. So we reinforced and put down, plywood over the entire floor. It was a huge undertaking.
Yeah, and now those floors are gone. We're all the way down to the concrete now.
Did you guys do that?
Yeah, in both rooms. We ripped up the whole floor, had to take down the rig, everything.
So, I mean, that would have been the smarter way. Keep in mind, I didn't do that at the time because, we still had that contract where, like, hey, if I leave, this needs to get converted back. So it was easier to pull up the plywood and fix the flooring than, put all new flooring in. But now the owner of the building owns the CrossFit, it makes more sense.
Yeah, and plus you would have had to put in ramps to go into the room. Like we have a concrete ramp that goes from the hallway into the double, or excuse me, into the triple, and now we have that garage door too, which
Because it
is
goes down.
yeah, it goes down.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Yeah, and
So,
that garage door is badass. I'm so jealous that that's up now.
oh yeah, like well, I mean, so, anyone who comes to the gym now, they see that garage door. It's funny how few people remember, or the people that have been around forget. We used to have to take everything through that side door. So there's not a lot of space to just take 20 rowers outside, all the barbells, and we would do it and finish class on time. I don't know how we got it all done.
Timelines.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when you live in an area like upstate New York, and you get a handful of months of beautiful weather, it's great to have that outdoor opportunity. We used to work out. I remember when spring would roll around, we would just force any workout we can outdoors. Even if it was not ideal and required 7 pieces of equipment, we would just go outdoors because it was so beautiful.
Oh yeah, they'd be like, all right, we're gonna do a quick warm up, and we are gonna spend the next 20 minutes bringing all 20 rowers out, all the kettlebells. We're gonna roll the bumper plates out. We're gonna get the barbells out there, build all the barbells. We still got to do a barbell warm up, and then we're gonna do this 30-minute Metcon.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
it was all worth it. And then we're gonna bring it all. Well, we got smart. We're not gonna bring it all back inside.
Right.
Leave it out
The
there for other
8:30 class
classes.
could handle that.
Yeah, that was the worst part about being the last class of the day. So you're gonna have to put it all back. And that's
And
where if you're the last coach of the day, don't let them leave. Like, hold on. I need everyone to grab a rower apiece.
okay, I'll ask you a question. What's the worst piece of equipment to have to move around?
The worst piece of equipment, a broken weight stack.
All right, that's you. That's a
Um,
unique answer. You mean
we've
like
got
on?
one 45-pound weight stack. Yeah. The wheels, like those first weight stacks that we bought, they were like it was a solid square metal that had the like little like cart wheels on the bottom.
Yeah.
And later on, we got different ones from Rogue where it was like a cross, and it's just better technology, I guess, to roll it, and it had bigger wheels. But this one, people would drop the plates from the top of the little pole there, and it would hit the base. And every time you do that, you slowly bend the wheels, and then eventually someone would get it out to the middle of the room and like, oh, I'm gonna go push this back, and it's filled with 45s, and it just doesn't budge because that one wheel is stuck, and then it starts spinning around in circles, and then the worst part is when you eventually like you tip it over because you're pushing from too high up on the stack, and then you have 45-pound plates all over the place.
Yeah, it's like a stubborn dog. Like I'm not moving.
Yeah,
I,
I would
I,
say that, or sometimes the assault bikes are a pain in the ass.
yeah, I mean, I'd give a little tip and trick out there. It's like if you're gonna get those racks, go buy those bigger wheels and throw those on the bottom. But
Yeah,
my answer would have been a 3-sided wooden box.
three-sided wooden box. Yeah, I can see that.
Just heavy, cumbersome, like no easy way to carry it. And when you had to go out a narrow doorway like we had, you're just always smashing your knuckles into the side of the wall.
Yep, that the I remember I used to have to get stuck putting away all of the metal squat racks, and
Those,
we
those are
had
good.
no room to put them anywhere. So they would normally be stored in the back storage room that's down the hall. So the wad space is about, I want to say maybe like 75 feet from the men's locker room door. And the men's locker room door has a heavy door, so it closes as soon as you let go of it. Because of course you don't want the door being left open. There's naked old men running all over the place.
Right, right, yeah.
So you'd have to carry down the metal old school squat rack down there, and then kick open the door and cantilever around the corner, and then get it back into the storage room. And then that was number one, and there were at least like 15 of them. So that
You
was
know
just
what?
like a job, a whole deal in itself.
This is very reminiscent of like everybody has that kind of period of their life where only a handful of people understand the pain they went through.
Yeah,
Like it's like other than the head coaches, no one knows what we're talking about right now. But just understand, it was a pain in the ass. Yes, and
yeah, it was.
ultimately we wound up, putting in a rig to get rid of some of those troubles. But when you have a startup, it's like you're just trying to save money, and sometimes it takes more work to save that money. And back in the day of CrossFit, there wasn't this. I was on eBay ordering from Christian's Fitness Factory. Those little, squat racks that were $100 each, but they got the job done.
Yeah. The only other thing that was more painful than what I've already mentioned would be moving a GHD. Those are just big and cumbersome and awkward, and the wheels are way too small still, so you have to prop it up really high. And when you're a shorter individual, it's a
Yes,
pain in the ass.
that's a two-person job.
Yeah, definitely. A two-person job that's typically done by one person. Whoever's stuck at the end of the night when they're all left out.
Exactly.
So we've gone through the expansion. What's a good homework assignment, do you think, for the box owner on being patiently impatient?
I think when I own the box, and even to this day, it's like when you think of something, you want it done immediately. It's like you've talked about it already. Like, hey, we have an idea. Cool, let's implement it Tuesday. And recently we talked about killing ideas, but I think it's important to also look at ideas that we want to grow, that we want to happen, and be patient about how long it's going to take, but impatient in the fact that it can't be delayed. It can't be, prolonged because of your contractor or because of, any other outside interference. So laying out a solid timeline for when you're implementing something new, but challenging yourself to get it done, but also making it realistic.
And I think the same thing can be applied. The same philosophy can be applied from a coaching standpoint to athletes. Like you're trying. Someone wants to learn to snatch, and you're trying to teach them to snatch, and you want them to have it right away. You want them to be able to get the PRs right away, and they maybe want it too. But you're both going to have to be patiently impatient about it to some
Yeah,
degree.
there are numerous times in your everyday life where you just have to look at something and think, all right, this isn't going to happen tomorrow. I want it to, I need to take a deep breath, whether you go back to a previous chapter or the freeze game, and, just think about what's happening in that moment, but really just thinking, okay, this is going to happen, but I need to be patient about it.
Definitely. Now, speaking of being patient, you mentioned at the end of the chapter that owning a gym taught you how to use a jackhammer, a forklift, and knock down a wall. Now, were you just saying that, just figuratively, or were you actually on the jackhammer or the forklift?
I think I was certainly involved with everything. I mean, I remember taking a sledgehammer to that concrete wall, and that's what happens. You realize, okay, this is going to take long. And I don't know if you were involved, but, the coaching staff needs to, throw on a hard hat once in a while and get involved. So anything I know how to do around the house, and maybe I sold myself a little short earlier, like I learned a lot, in owning the gym, but it's everything I learned was from those times at the gym where you're just like, this needs to get fixed. This needs to get fixed right away. And if I don't do it, I need to hire someone. It's going to take time. It's going to cost money. So just learning how to do some of those things yourself is very important.
Yeah, like knowing basic, on changing out the light bulbs, fixing a toilet seat, like something comes off the wall, you have a drill charged in your office that you can drill it back on there. Maybe have some of those steps in place already so that when it does happen, you can just take care of it right away. You don't have to contact someone.
Exactly.
So, Jay, any other thoughts on this chapter?
No, I think some things that we touched upon and definitely need to be considered is just as a small business owner, like thinking about, okay, if I am expanding, which can take on numerous avenues, the expansion can be your website. Just think, is it worth it? Is what I'm about to do, it might seem like the greatest idea, but is the time, the effort, the energy, the money that's going to be spent to make that happen worth what you're going to gain from it? And if you're not sure, really take a long, hard look at it. And like we said, I think a good challenge is just to find something in your life that you're excited about, that you want to happen, but realizing, hey, it's going to happen. You just need to be patient about it. And patience is something, there's that, expression, patience is a virtue. And it's been, that expression's been around for centuries because it's true. That's one thing I've really tried to learn, like, especially in entrepreneurship, it doesn't have to happen tomorrow. There's always going to be more to do. There's always going to be new projects to work on, but take a deep breath and know that it'll get done. You just have to be patient.
And it'd probably be a good idea to have some kind of like a year to year or 5 year plan for your business too. Okay, and different situations within that. What does happen when we get to 200 members? What happens when we get to 300 members? What are we going to do?
Yeah, that's great because we can only expand the schedule so much because even if we have a class every hour, that 1 p.m. and 2 p.m. classes are going to be quiet. So it doesn't matter that we have 50 people in these other times. We need to figure out how we're going to expand. And sometimes rather than expanding, the better answer might be increase your rates. So just taking a long, hard look at that, having a plan for growth, but then also being smart about it and not just assuming, hey, we're bigger, we need more space.
Yeah, and if there's any gym owners listening right now and they're kind of in that in between phase and they're not sure, they could just reach out to you, right?
Sure, any gym owner can reach out to me, anytime, for real. I always like hearing from you guys. Best hour of their day at gmail.com is the best email for that. But yeah, if you have any questions, comments, concerns about box ownership, about things I've done, I'm happy to listen. Obviously, if you're reaching out because you've listened to this book, you've got some experience, because what I try to do these days is when someone has a question for me, either direct them to the book or the podcast because we've answered that. But if you've done that and you have deeper, more specific questions, I'm always here for you.
Perfect. And if you contact me, I'm just going to turn you right back around to contact Jay.
You're gonna CC me on there, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I know that's not a very specific lesson, and the goal of this book was just to really start to take these lessons from business and implement them into your real life. So hopefully, if you're listening to this and you don't own a box, or maybe you don't even coach, you're just a member, think about where you can be more patient. Is it with your significant other? Do they do something that drives you crazy? Is it, with your kids? Is it with your boss? Find something in your life where you feel implementing more patience can actually make it an entirely different scenario, and see if that helps. Because,
Awesome.
we've all been there. I need this to happen tomorrow. And then when it happens tomorrow, you're like, cool, now I need this to happen tomorrow. Right? So you're never going to be satisfied.
Sometimes you just need to slow down.
That's right. Do less better, like we've talked about
Yep.
in the past, right? And then be patiently impatient.
And then that'll help you be better. Look
Exactly.
at
Remember,
that.
going back to Albany CrossFit, a lot of brainstorming for that. Be better. Be in parentheses.
Yeah.
We'll throw that up there too. So yeah, another great chapter, James.
All right. Well, thank you, Jay, and we will talk next time.
Thanks again for listening to that special episode of Best Hour of Their Day. If you enjoyed, go ahead and download the book. You can check out the audio book, you can check out the paperback, or even the ebook. We place the link right in the show description. So once again, thanks for listening. Have a great rest of your day.